Well, my first meeting with His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh was a disaster. Actually, I was attending an international conference at Johannesburg, organized by International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. And they hosted a reception where I came across my friend, Mr. Babar Ali, who was the national president of the World Wildlife Foundation in Pakistan. And Sayyid Babar Ali asked me, have you met the Duke? I said, no, I've never met him. He said, all right, I'll take you and introduce you to him. So he took me to the Duke, and as I shook hands with him, he immediately looked at me and said that, so you're destroying environment in the name of development. And I was so taken aback that I was just left speechless. I didn't know what to say in response. But fortunately for me, another guest at the reception, he just came over and greeted the Duke. And he started talking to him. And I just made a hasty retreat. So thereafter, my second meeting with him was in Islamabad. In mid-80s, the United Nations has launched a program called UN Global 500 Award. Now, this was an award which the UN used to give every year to a few people all over the world. And I think the government of Pakistan probably recommended my name because of my work at the Aga Khan Rural Support Program. And I got a message from the British High Commission that a function is being organized to give this award. And fortunately, the Duke of Edinburgh is in town, and he has graciously agreed to give the awards. So I went to the High Commission to get the award from the Duke, and when my name was called and I went up, so he looked at me and then he said, well, you should come right in front of me because they want to take a photograph. So that put a smile on my face. And that's the photograph you will see in this video. In fact, Finance Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Sartaj Aziz, was the keynote speaker at this function, and he spoke. And the Duke was so impressed by him that in his speech he said that if I had anything to do with these awards, I would also give you one, saying to Sartaj Aziz. Well, that was a short and sweet meeting. Then what had happened that while I was implementing the Aga Khan Rural Support Program in northern areas of Pakistan, the mountainous area, one of the valleys I visited, the villagers asked me that could the program help them to protect their wildlife. And I said, well, what kind of help you want from us? They said, yes, you see, in our valley, this was Bar Valley in the Nagar area of Gilgit-Baltistan, Hunza. And they said, we have 10 hunters in the valley whose livelihood is to shoot ibex and then sell the meat. And what we are proposing, the villagers told me, that they would like to convert these hunters into wildlife guards. So they wanted for a year a handsome amount of $500 from the program so that they could compensate them for the income that they were getting by selling the ibex meat. Anyway, I took the proposal to my board in Karachi, and you know they are all urban elites. And when I mentioned to them that I'd like to spend these $500 for protection of the wildlife, and they said that, well, what have you done for the people that now you are wanting to divert the program to wildlife? Anyway, I didn't give up. Shortly after that, Sayyid Babar Ali, he visited Gilgit, and I mentioned this proposal of the villagers, and he was very excited. And he said, yes, I'll give you, the WWF will give you the money. So I took the money to the villagers and I said, well, I'll give you the money, but on two conditions. One is that I'm going to ask the wildlife department specialist, expert, to come and count the number of ibex in your valley. And after 1 year, he will come again to count what you have done. So they agreed. And Mr. Ashiq Ali, I remember his name, he came and counted the animals. And he said that there are 200 ibex in this valley. So after a year when he came and counted the ibex, he came to me and said that there are now 700 ibex. And I was surprised and in disbelief. I said, it is not biologically possible, how can it be? And he said, no, what happened was that all the ibex of the surrounding valleys around this valley came to this valley because it became a safe haven. And then the wildlife department suggested to the villagers that now that you have so many animals and you need money for your wildlife guards, why don't you let the wildlife department introduce trophy hunting? And with that money, and the department promises to give you 75% of the trophy hunting income to the villagers. So that started, and that news got around like wildfire in all the valleys of Gilgit, Baltistan and Chitral. And they all started protecting their wildlife, ibex and markhor mainly. And in fact, the foreigners used to pay in dollars. In fact, last year, one ibex was sold for $110,000. So this became a very successful program of protecting wildlife. Most probably, Sayyid Babar Ali mentioned it to the Duke, what has happened in northern areas. So I got a message that the Duke is coming on a visit to northern areas, to Gilgit. So I went to receive him at the airport along with the commissioner of the district, the head of the district. And the Duke came down from the plane, he was flying it himself, and he said that this was one of the most difficult flights that he had undertaken, because he couldn't spot where Gilgit was. And then he saw a speck from a very height, and he brought down his plane just like a lift. And he said he is not never going to do it again. Anyway, he came to the AKRSP office for a couple of hours briefing of our activities. And we informed the Prince that this is almost 85,000 square kilometer mountainous area, one of the most difficult terrains in the world. Almost 8 of the highest peaks above 8,000 meters are situated in this, the K2, which is number 2 after Everest. So when we asked people what did they want, the response was that we don't have water. Now, northern areas of Pakistan is almost like a vertical desert. It is in the shadow of monsoon, so the rains don't come. They hardly get about 4 inches of rainfall every year. And they told us that when I said, where are you going to get the water? They said, well, we have glaciers, we'll tap water from there. So we helped them in building these irrigation channels, almost 3,000 of them. And they almost brought 100,000 hectares of new land under irrigation range. But you know, the land was not suitable for crop culture. So they planted trees. Almost 50 million trees they planted, and also 10 million fruit trees, because it's a very good fruit area. They grow very good apricots. And cherries, they wanted cherry plants because cherry also grows. So we got a cherry root stock from France. So in Islamabad, people are very happy to buy the French cherries, little knowing that these have all come from northern areas. And we also got the apple variety from California. So in that way, people really told us what to do. And because we listened to them, they did everything. And on top of that, they also saved environment and, of course, wildlife. So the Prince was to go on a 2-day field visit with the WWF team because they had organized it. So I was not associated with that program. So I escorted him to the vehicle on which we had arranged for him to go on the field visit. And he looked at the vehicle and he said, these ratchet Toyotas are everywhere. And I was reminded of this comment when I heard about his funeral, that his hearse was to be taken in a Land Rover. So even in his death, he tried to give publicity to Land Rover. So I didn't know when he was leaving Gilgit, but I happened to go to the airport because I was going to Islamabad. I had checked in, and then I saw that the Prince was there in the VIP lounge. And when he saw me, he said, oh, so you are also coming with us to Islamabad. I said to him, yes, sir, I'm going to Islamabad, but I've already checked in the PIA flight. But very often it is aborted. And if it does not come, then I would be very happy to come with you. Anyway, the flight came, and so I left. And when I was waiting for my baggage at the Islamabad airport, I saw Duke's plane landing, And then it came and parked itself just outside the lounge. And I saw the Duke coming out of the plane and just walking on the tarmac. So I went up and greeted him. And he was very pleased to see me. And he said, "Oh, so you have already reached. Okay, why don't you go and see my plane?" So I was delighted to go up inside the plane, and there I found that it was like a drawing room. There was a round table around which Sayyid Babar Ali, the others were sitting there. So very soon we were taking off for Karachi, so I said goodbye to him. But then I got a message from Lahore that the WWF has decided to give you the Conservation Medal. So will you come to Lahore? Because the Duke is presenting it. So I went over to Lahore, and there I met him again, and he gave me a certificate, and there was one box which I knew was a medal, and there was another small box. And I just looked inquisitively at that, and the Duke said that, "Oh, it's a watch." It was really a Rolex watch, at the back of which my name was inscribed for the World Conservation Medal. So that is how I know the Duke. A lot of humor, a lot of magnanimity, and I found him a wonderful person.